just witnessed the biggest and most shameful fraud check in the history of combat sports. Andrew Tate, a man who swore he was a top-level, legendary kickboxer, stepped into a fight against a clumsy YouTuber and was shamelessly beaten and humiliated. Yes, this man completely outclassed Andrew Tate with no chance whatsoever. I already made a video on this channel explaining that Andrew's entire career, and the way he talks about it, is nothing but a complete lie. A lie he fed to naive fans. And the fight against Chase Demore showed how things really are. Even before the fight, during the stare-down, Tate flinched from the slightest movement by Chase as if he had been electrocuted. Meanwhile, Andrew's fan base claimed that this was actually a good thing and that he was demonstrating unreal reflexes. In reality, it became obvious at that very moment that Andrew realized he had lied himself into a corner, causing his nervous system to be completely overloaded. That nervousness and anxiety carried over into the fight. Tate started the bout by throwing jabs to the body while not moving his head at all. Because of that, even such an awkward boxer as Chase was easily able to counter Tate's punches. Andrew is obviously not a world champion like he claimed. At best, he's an aging amateur who occasionally hits pads. And like an aging amateur, he continued to throw jabs to the body because he had absolutely no idea how to land a punch to the head of a boxer who was backing up with extended arms. A basic distance-closing combination, a double jab followed by an overhand, was completely beyond the understanding of the legendary champion, Tate. So he kept pounding Chase's body, while Chase not only started catching Tate with punches, but quickly realized that he didn't even need to punch back much at all. Essentially, Tate posed no threat to Chase from the very first round, which is why Chase decided to simply hang on him in the clinch to completely exhaust him. Of course, Tate, being a multiple-time world champion, understood what was going on, right? No. Apparently, Andrew liked Chase's armpits so much that he started diving into Demore's clinch himself, making Chase's job even easier. At some point, it almost looked like Andrew had some kind of fetish for helping his opponent dominate him in the clinch. The way Tate gave up every position in the clinch and willingly allowed himself to be drained is a mistake not even an amateur would make. It's the mistake of someone who has never clenched his fists in his life. Very quickly, Andrew got tired. However, in a strange way, that fatigue actually helped him. Realizing that the real world is different from his imaginary fantasies, he finally engaged in the fight. He began attempting to punch Chase in the head instead of mindlessly pounding the body with a lazy jab. Almost all of the headshots missed, but at least they cooled down Chase's arrogance a bit. But as soon as the confidence from landing a few punches faded, Tate became even more exhausted and once again started searching for Chase's armpit to hide under it. At first, Demore caught Tate at that moment with straight punches. Over time, he began catching him with uppercuts and seriously rocking him. And when Tate froze from being stunned, Demore followed up with hooks. A couple of times, Andrew saved himself from a knockout in the clinch, pretending he was trying to wrestle. But there were also situations where the referee clearly chose not to count a knockdown. Apparently, Andrew Tate isn't someone the referee particularly likes, and he decided to punish him in that way. By the end of the fight, Tate was covered in bruises and cuts. Absolutely every exchange, if you can even call them exchanges, he lost. Somehow, Andrew managed to get beaten in what should have been the easiest matchup of his life. The absurd part is that when the judge's decision was announced, one judge scored the fight as a draw. Thank God the other two judges gave the win to Chase Demore, even if with a strange score. On paper, it might look like the fight was close, but it wasn't. However, that perfectly describes Tate's entire fighting career. On paper, it's one thing, but in reality, it's an absolute lie. And if you still don't fully understand what I mean, let me remind you how Andrew Tate gaslit the entire internet into believing he was a kickboxing champion. In 2005, Tate started practicing martial arts. In November 2008, Tate was ranked 7th best light heavyweight kickboxer in Britain by the International Sport Kickboxing Association, or ISKA. But this is where the problems start. It's hard to find all of Tate's fights. If you count only documented fights, then his record is 25-9. Even if you don't search for all the fights, but only title fights, many are still simply not available on the network. Let me remind you that we live in a time when the first title fight of Joe Louis against James J. Reddick, which took place in 1937, is in the public domain. There is even a version in color. However, anything can happen. Perhaps the records are really lost. So let's look at who he fought in title fights. After all, these are fights for the world title. The first attempt was successful. In 2009, Tate won by knockout in the 5th round and became the English champion of ISCA in cruiserweight. There's no information about the opponent he defeated, except for his name, Paul Randall. In the next fight, Andrew took another IKF British cruiserweight title. This time, more information about the opponent. This is Daniel Hughes, but nothing is known about his merits in kickboxing. The only mention of him is as a boxer. In this sport, he has a record of 12-3. In 2011, an attempt to take a third title was not successful. Tate was already the English ISCA champion, but wanted to take the vacant world title. This was prevented by Jean